Choi Yunho walked out of the doctor's office with heavy, stumbling steps, shrouded in a dark, suffocating aura. He did not see Daye anywhere along the corridor. The girl was likely too terrified to face him at that moment. With a completely shattered heart, Yunho pushed open the door to his sister's hospital room. The sight inside nearly made him lose his sanity. There, right beside the bed where Yn lay weak and frail, sat Kim Taehyung. The man did not appear remorseful in the slightest. On the contrary, Taehyung was clutching In's hand tightly, pressing repeated kisses to the back of her hand with eyes that shone with unmistakable happiness, an expression of profound gratitude that could not be hidden. Oppa, Yn called out faintly the moment she spotted her brother at the threshold, her voice incredibly weak. Taehyung turned his head, his eyes meeting Yunho's. Yunho ah, follow me, Yunho said flatly. His voice was cold, even, and carried an authority that brooked no argument. Without waiting for a response, he spun on his heel and walked out. Taehyung froze for a split second, sensing that a massive storm was about to break. He looked down at Yn, who was visibly trembling with fear. Sweetheart, I will be right back. I need to talk to Yunho. Oppa. Yunho Oppa looks so angry, Yn whimpered, tears beginning to pool in her eyes. Is he mad because I am pregnant with your baby, Taehyung Oppa? Taehyung gently wiped the tears from her cheeks, offering the most reassuring smile he had. Don't worry. If your brother is angry, his anger is directed at me, not you. Just rest, okay? Remember what the doctor said, you must not let anything weigh on your mind. After pressing a soft kiss to her forehead, Taehyung stepped out to follow Yunho. Out in the corridor, Daye reappeared and immediately slipped into the room to keep Yn company. Yunho led Taehyung to the hospital's back garden, an area that was largely deserted since visiting hours had already ended. The dim, twilight setting only heightened the suffocating tension that had reached its absolute peak. Yunho stopped abruptly. He whipped around and glared at Taehyung with wild, bloodshot eyes fueled by pure hatred. You got my sister pregnant? Yunho demanded, throwing the question straight to his face. Taehyung took a deep, steadying breath. He stood his ground, making no attempt to dodge the confrontation. Yes, I. Punch. A brutal, uninhibited fist landed squarely on Taehyung's face. Taehyung was sent crashing to the ground, and the corner of his lip instantly split open, leaking thick, crimson blood. You absolute bastard, Yunho roared. He lunged at Taehyung just as the man was trying to push himself up, throwing a blind, savage barrage of punches. Fist after fist rained down on Taehyung's chest, stomach, and face. Taehyung did not fight back. He allowed his body to bear the brunt of Yunho's explosive rage. He knew this physical pain was absolutely nothing compared to the sheer devastation Yunho was feeling as an older brother. Yunho grabbed Taehyung by the collar of his shirt, his hands shaking violently. I trusted you, Taehyung. I left Yn with you because I thought you were the safest person in the world next to me. But you ruined her. You completely destroyed my trust. Yunho screamed, his voice cracking with a raw, agonizing wrench. Taehyung lowered his head, a crushing weight of guilt pressing down on his chest. His breath hitched as he forced himself to look back up, meeting Yunho's gaze, a look so profoundly thick with disappointment that it made Taehyung feel utterly microscopic. Yet, beneath that guilt, he knew one thing: if he had taken the traditional, proper route, Yunho would have never given Yn to him. With a voice that was quiet, yet unyielding, Taehyung finally spoke. Yunho ah, I am sorry. I know I have let you down. Taehyung took a deep breath, fighting to control the tremor in his voice. But there is something you need to know. I love your sister. I genuinely want to build a life with her. Yunho clenched his jaw but chose to remain silent for a beat. You can hit me all you want if it makes you feel better, Taehyung continued softly, looking at his best friend with pleading eyes. But I beg you, give Yn and me your blessing. I will protect her. I will love her. I will take the absolute best care of her, Yunho ah. I swear. A heavy silence fell over them. The wind sweeping through the courtyard was biting cold, yet Taehyung's palms were slick with sweat. Taehyung stared at Yunho with absolute sincerity, his expression somber but entirely resolute. I am deeply in love with Yn, Yunho ah. I have had these feelings since last year. I was just always too terrified to admit it. His voice dropped to a whisper, as if all his remaining courage was pooled into this exact second. And I am sorry that I lost control. I regret it, but my only regret is letting you down. Taehyung held his breath for a moment before pushing forward, but I do not regret getting YN pregnant. I am happy, because she is carrying my child. Those final words came out with a shaky but unshakable conviction. He was no longer hiding anything. Crack. Another devastating punch landed hard on Taehyung's face. His head snapped to the side, and fresh blood welling up at the corner of his swollen lips. Yunho's eyes were still blazing with a sharp, cold fury, packed with bitter disappointment. You could have asked for my sister's hand the right way, Taehyung. Yunho bellowed, his voice shaking with volatile emotion. Not like this. YN is still so young, and you have completely ruined her future. Taehyung wiped the blood from his lip, wincing but refusing to back down even a single inch. Are you honestly telling me you would have given your sister to me if I had asked the right way? His voice was raspy but firm. You constantly reminded me never to fall for YN. Do you think that was easy, Yunho? Ah. Yunho balled his hands into tight fists, his body tensing up, ready to throw another punch. And I did not ruin her future, Taehyung continued, his breathing ragged. YN can still pursue her dreams. I am not going to tie her down. If anything, I want to build that future alongside her. Yunho raised his fist, the third strike poised to launch. But, stop it. The sharp, authoritative shout shattered the tense evening air. Both men turned simultaneously. Park So-hee stood just a few feet away, panting, her face completely pale as she took in the sight of the two men. The woman, Yunho's secretary and close college friend, stared at them, her eyes wide with a mixture of terror and deep anxiety. What is wrong with you? Why are you beating Taehyung like this? So-hee asked as she grabbed Yunho's raised hand, gently guiding it down. Her voice was trembling. This was the very first time So-hee had ever seen Yunho this unhinged. The man was usually cold, calculated, and entirely controlled, not like this, looking like a bomb seconds away from detonating. What is wrong? So-hee repeated, her voice softening this time. The fiery rage consuming Yunho's gaze slowly began to dim. Seeing the sheer terror in So-hee's eyes forced his rational side to claw its way back to the surface. His erratic breathing began to even out, drop by drop. So-hee then turned to Taehyung. Taehyung, ah, you need to leave. Go tend to your wounds. Taehyung pushed himself up slowly, his face heavily bruised and battered. He stepped closer, attempting to speak. Yunho, ah, leave. A single word. Cold. Flat. Absolute. Taehyung caught his breath, glancing at So-hee for a brief moment, giving her a subtle, silent plea to calm Yunho down, before finally turning around and walking away with heavy, dragging steps. The moment the sound of Taehyung's footsteps vanished, So-hee gasped in surprise as Yunho suddenly yanked her into a tight embrace. His grip was suffocatingly strong, as if he were utterly terrified of losing his footing. He buried his face deep into the crook of her neck, his breathing harsh and ragged, shivering from the residual adrenaline of his unspent rage. So-hee froze for a split second before slowly raising her hands to gently stroke the back of Yunho's head. What happened? Why are you so furious with Taehyung? Yunho did not answer. He simply inhaled deeply, over and over again, caught in a suffocating deadlock between raw anger, fear, and the absolute inability to accept the reality that had just blindsided him. Strangely, being wrapped in So-hee's arms brought him down. There was something about this woman that always possessed the unique power to quiet the raging storms inside him. So-hee offered a bittersweet smile, even as her own chest thinned with his pain. If you are not ready to talk about it, that is okay, she whispered softly against his ear. Come on, let's find a quiet place first. Just so you can breathe. Yunho merely gave a slight nod, still holding her as tightly as he could, as if So-hee were the single anchor keeping him sane. Park So-hee's apartment. Choi Yunho's steps felt incredibly heavy, as though invisible concrete were binding his ankles. The world he had built through sheer hard work and a fierce protection of his sister, YN, had shattered with a single medical diagnosis. On the brink of despair, he turned to the only person he felt could serve as an anchor in the middle of this storm. Yunho asked Sohee to take him to her apartment. Fortunately, her place was located not far from the hospital, requiring only a 10-minute drive to escape the suffocating smell of antiseptic and the harsh reality weighing heavily on his chest. For just a moment, Yunho wanted to clear his mind before he absolutely had to face YN. He feared that his explosive emotions would only complicate the situation further. Here, drink this first, Sohee said softly once they were inside the quiet apartment unit. She handed him a glass of cold water, trying to ease the tension that was clearly radiating from his hardened jawline. Yunho snatched the glass and downed the water completely, as if the thirst in his throat were a direct representation of the chaos inside his head. After setting the glass down on the glass table with a rather loud clink, Yunho stared at Sohee. His gaze was intense, wounded, and vulnerable, making Sohee feel slightly self-conscious. However, that awkwardness vanished when Yunho suddenly pulled her into an embrace. Sohee gasped slightly, her body freezing for a second before she finally softened. She did not ask questions, she did not protest. She simply remained quiet while patting Yunho's back in a soothing, rhythmic motion, allowing him to find a shoulder to lean on. YN is pregnant, Yunho said after a long, suffocating silence. His voice was raspy, barely a painful whisper. Sohee's eyes widened completely. Her heart seemed to stop beating for a moment. She immediately pulled away from the embrace, gripped his shoulders, and stared at him in utter disbelief. What? What did you just say? Do not joke about this, Yunho, she asked in shock, hoping she had misheard him. YN is pregnant. Taehyung is the one who got her pregnant, Yunho said faintly. His head hung low, unable to bear the look of disappointment that might appear on Sohee's face. The name of Taehyung, the best friend he had trusted the most, now felt like a dagger plunged straight into his back. Sohee fell silent. Her expression grew even more shocked, as if her brain were working overtime to process such a traumatic piece of information. Taehyung, the man they had known all this time to be the one who protected YN the most. What am I supposed to do now, Sohee? I failed to protect her, Yunho asked, burying his face into the crook of Sohee's neck, seeking refuge from the shame and fury raging within him. Sohee did not answer immediately. She took a deep breath, trying to neutralize her own shock for the sake of becoming a pillar of strength for Yunho. She gently broke the embrace, then grabbed a glass of water for herself and drank it all down. She needed oxygen and logic to speak right now. After sitting back down near Yunho, Sohee let out a long sigh before tightly gripping his hand. No matter how angry you get, it will not undo the situation, Yunho. It has already happened, and we have no choice but to face it. She looked into Yunho's eyes, trying to convey strength. What Taehyung did might be completely wrong, unforgivably wrong. However, you do not need to be excessively afraid because Taehyung will undoubtedly take responsibility. He will definitely protect YN and take care of her. Sohee paused for a moment, making sure Yunho was listening. You know exactly what kind of man Taehyung is, don't you? He is a man of his word. That is exactly why you have trusted him all this time, right? We have never seen Taehyung close to any woman except YN. You also know very well how deeply Taehyung cares for your sister. His love is real, Yunho, even if he took the wrong path. Yunho remained silent, but his breathing began to grow a bit more regulated. You have no choice but to give them your blessing to get married as soon as possible. That is the only logical way out right now, so he advised in a firm yet gentle tone. There is one more thing that is absolutely vital, you must not display your explosive emotions around YN. A pregnant woman's feelings must be strictly protected, especially during the highly vulnerable first trimester. Sohee stroked the back of Yunho's hand, trying to provide a broader perspective. If you only give in to your endless anger, YN could become severely stressed. And worst of all, that stress could cause YN to lose the baby, or it could even cost YN her own life. I know you are disappointed, and I know you are angry, but right now, you must prioritize In's health above everything else. Yunho took a deep, full breath, letting Sohee's words seep into the logic that had temporarily gone dormant. He looked at Sohee with a somber gaze, feeling a massive wave of gratitude that this woman was not judging him or making the situation worse. Thank you, Sohee. Thank you for reminding me, Yunho said softly. Sohee nodded, offering a faint, genuine smile. You are very welcome. Now that you feel a little calmer, let's head back to the hospital, okay? YN must be anxious to see you. Yunho let out a long breath and finally nodded. The distinct scent of antiseptic and the rhythmic beeping of the medical monitor served as a dull, yet anxiety-inducing backdrop for YN. An hour had already passed since her last examination, but neither Taehyung nor Yunho had shown their faces. The VVIP room felt entirely too spacious and quiet for YN, who was currently consumed by restlessness. Daye, who had been sitting on the sofa in the corner of the room with a laptop on her lap, noticed her best friend's agitation. She closed her laptop screen and walked over. What's wrong, YN? Does something hurt? Do you need anything? I'm sorry, I was so focused on finishing my assignment that I kind of ignored you, Daye said softly, adjusting the edges of In's blanket. YN shook her head gently, her fingers nervously twirling the corner of the hospital bedsheet. No, it's not that. I'm just worried because Taehyung Oppa and Yunho Oppa haven't shown up yet. Daye Yunho Oppa wouldn't hit Taehyung Oppa, right? What if he actually goes that far? You know yourself how terrifying Yunho Oppa gets when he's angry. In's fear was well-founded. She knew her brother's fiercely protective nature all too well. The news of this pregnancy was not just a typical joyous announcement for Yunho, it was an absolute explosion. Don't worry, YN. They are probably just having a serious talk, man-to-man. At most, they are discussing your future with Taehyung Oppa. Come on, stop overthinking. A pregnant woman shouldn't carry too much on her mind, or the baby will get stressed too, you know, Daye said, trying to comfort her, even though she herself felt a wave of dread imagining what was currently happening outside. Not long after, In's phone, which was lying on the nightstand, began to ring. The name, Taehyung Oppa Heart, flashed across the screen. With a swift movement, YN snatched the phone. Hello, Oppa. Where are you? You're okay, right? YN fired the questions in rapid succession, her voice trembling as she fought back tears. On the other end of the line, Taehyung did his best to regulate his breathing so he would sound as normal as possible, even though the corner of his lip was throbbing with a sharp, stinging pain. I'm fine, sweetheart. Just stay calm, okay? I am incredibly sorry, but I had to head back to the mansion for a moment. My parents arrived suddenly without letting me know, so I have to welcome them first. I'm sorry, love, but I will definitely come back to the hospital later, Taehyung explained, offering an excuse. Taehyung was forced to lie. Right now, he was sitting inside his car, staring at his reflection in the rearview mirror. Deep purplish-blue bruises adorned his cheekbone and the corner of his lip, the brutal aftermath of Yunho's blind rage earlier. He could not possibly let YN see him in this condition, she would undoubtedly burst into hysterical tears, which would be terrible for her pregnancy. Alright then, Oppa, that's fine. But where is Yunho Oppa? He was with you earlier, wasn't he? YN asked again, still feeling that something was amiss. Your brother left with Sohee, he said he wanted to get some fresh air for a bit. They will head over to your room shortly. Oh, by the way, I've already ordered some healthy food for you via courier, and it should arrive any minute. I know you won't have an appetite for that bland hospital food. I'll definitely be back this afternoon, alright, sweetheart. Taehyung said in an incredibly sweet tone, desperately trying to mask the pain radiating from his face. Okay, Oppa, YN replied softly. Alright, I'll let you go for now. I've already texted Daye to stay by your side until I return. Stay healthy, my sweet little pregnant mama, Taehyung ended the call with a tender voice that caused a light blush to creep onto In's cheeks. Taehyung Oppa, right, Daye teased. YN merely nodded with a small smile, feeling a significant weight lift from her shoulders. You are incredibly lucky, you know, YN, to score a man like Taehyung Oppa. He's handsome, established, filthy rich. Seriously, he is every woman's absolute dream, Daye said with sparkling eyes, trying to lighten the mood. YN suddenly pouted her lips, instantly becoming possessive. Don't you dare fall for Taehyung Oppa. Taehyung Oppa belongs to me. Daye burst out laughing so hard that her shoulders shook. Haha, calm down, YN. Besides, my boyfriend isn't any less handsome. Even if he isn't as rich as Taehyung Oppa, he still has plenty of cash and he's incredibly generous. And most importantly, Daye leaned closer to In's ear, whispering something in a completely blunt tone. His C_0_C_kappa is N_9_epsilon. It makes me RQ_A_T all the time. Gosh, Daye, watch your mouth. YN scolded, her face turning a deep crimson. Even though she had already been intimate with Taehyung, talking about such matters so explicitly still made her intensely shy. Oh, please, stop acting so _eta_0_C_epsilon_T. You already have the proof of MAC eta9 love epsilon right eta r partial differential epsilon your S_T_0_M_alpha_C_N, Daye teased, playfully nudging In's chin. The two of them finally chuckled together. YN felt amused, yet she found her current situation deeply ironic. Looking back at how she had initially been trapped by Taehyung's seduction, she realized just how naive she had been. Yet, strangely, there was no anger in her heart. She adored every ounce of Taehyung's attention, and even the embarrassment she felt right now was undeniable proof that she truly loved the man. Knock, knock, knock. The knock on the door cut their laughter short. The door opened, revealing Choi Yunho and Park Sohee. In's face lit up instantly. Even though Sohee was always incredibly busy with her work as Yunho's secretary, YN had always felt close to her because of her mature and nurturing nature. Sohee Yeoni. YN squealed softly. Sohee offered a warm smile, stepping into the room ahead of Yunho, who still looked visibly stiff. Hello, beautiful. How are you feeling? Does anything still hurt? Sohee asked, gently stroking In's hair. I had a really bad headache and felt very nauseous earlier, Yeoni, but I'm feeling much better now, YN answered honestly. However, her eyes quickly shifted to the man standing frozen near the door. Oppa, YN called out faintly. Her heart sank the moment she caught her brother's blank expression. Yunho Oppa, are you mad at me? Yunho closed his eyes tightly, trying to swallow his pride and the emotions that were still boiling inside him. He took a deep breath, then looked at Sohee and Daye in turn. Sohee, could you and Daye please step out for a moment? I want to speak with YN alone. Sohee nodded understandingly. She gestured for Daye to follow her. To keep Daye from getting bored or feeling awkward, Sohee took her to the cafe located right next to the hospital building. Now, the room was left with only the two siblings. A heavy, suffocating silence blanketed the space once more. Oppa, YN called out again, her voice barely a whisper. Yunho took a step forward, the steady thud of his shoes sounding like a verdict to YN. However, instead of exploding in anger, Yunho simply sat down on the chair beside the bed. He reached for his sister's small hand, gripping it tightly, and pressed repeated kisses to the back of it. A sharp ache spread through Yunho's heart. The sister he used to cradle in his arms now had to face a reality that he considered entirely too heavy for her. Are you angry because I'm pregnant with Taehyung Oppa's baby? YN asked, tears beginning to pool in her eyes. I am only disappointed in Taehyung, Yunho said in a heavy voice, looking at his sister with a gaze full of affection laced with deep hurt. But Taehyung Oppa didn't hurt me, Oppa. Taehyung Oppa is incredibly good to me. He is always the one who keeps me company whenever you are too busy with work. Please don't be mad at Taehyung Oppa. YN defended the man she loved, cutting Yunho's heart even deeper. Yunho lowered his head for a moment, gathering his strength. He needed to make sure of one thing. YN, I want you to answer me honestly. Did Taehyung ever force you? Did he do this against your will? YN instantly shook her head rapidly. No, Oppa. Taehyung Oppa never forced me. He always asked if I wanted to or not. He genuinely loves me. Do you love him? Are you in love with Taehyung? Yunho asked, staring deep into his sister's eyes. In's face flushed crimson instantly. She fell silent for a beat before giving a small but definitive nod as her answer. Seeing this, Yunho rubbed his face harshly. He felt a sudden urge to punch Taehyung all over again for stealing his sister's innocence. YN, you realize you are still very young, right? Don't you think your age and maturity level right now make you unready to be a mother? You are still unstable, you still want to have fun, and you are still childish. Didn't you ever think that far ahead before doing something you two shouldn't have been doing in the first place? Yunho said in a serious tone, trying to make her understand the logic of the situation. Driven by her pregnancy hormones, In's emotions were amplified manifold. Hearing her brother's words made her feel as though her heart were being repeatedly stabbed. In's eyes welled up with tears, and they finally spilled over. Why would you say that, Oppa? I am ready to be a mother. I will learn. Taehyung Oppa also said he would help me take care of the baby and teach me everything. In's voice rose, her breathing growing ragged from emotion. You're mean, Oppa. Do you hate that there's a baby in my stomach? Do you want to throw this baby away? YN began to cry hysterically, causing the medical monitor beside her to beep at a slightly faster tempo. Yunho was startled by his sister's reaction. He immediately let out a long sigh, leaned forward, and pulled YN into a tight embrace. He kissed her forehead affectionately, his hand wiping away the tears streaming down her cheeks. Shish. I'm sorry. Don't cry, sweetheart. I'm sorry, okay. I didn't mean it that way. I am just worried about your future and your health. Please, don't cry anymore. It isn't good for your health or the baby's. Yunho whispered softly, trying to calm the storm raging inside his sister. YN nodded against her brother's chest, her tiny sobs still audible. After a few moments, she broke the embrace and looked at her brother with swollen eyes. Listen to me. Yunho took both of In's hands in his. I may be deeply disappointed by how you two went about this. But regardless, that baby is your flesh and blood. It is my niece or nephew. I will still help take care of you, and I will help take care of your baby. A faint smile began to spread across In's face, a glimmer of hope returning to her eyes. But there is a condition, Yunho continued firmly. Once your pregnancy is strong and stable enough, you and Taehyung must get married immediately. I do not want you two lingering in an official limbo for long. You know what marriage means, right, YN? It is a massive responsibility. YN nodded resolutely, her smile widening even further. Yes, Oppa. Taehyung Oppa also told me that he would marry me as soon as possible. He wants to take full responsibility. Thank you, Oppa, and I am incredibly sorry for letting you down. I love you so much, Yunho Oppa. In's final sentence made Yunho's eyes burn with heat. He had to blink repeatedly just to keep his tears from falling in front of his sister. I love you very much too, YN. More than anything, Yunho whispered, reverently kissing his sister's hand. Even though his heart still felt incredibly heavy, and even though he felt he had failed as both a father figure and an older brother, Yunho realized that he had to let YN go so she could begin her own new life with Taehyung. But one thing was absolute, Yunho would always remain In's final line of defense. He would keep a close eye on them, ensuring that Taehyung kept every single one of his promises, and he would never let anyone, including Taehyung himself, hurt his sister ever again. Outside the room, Sohee, who, as it turned out, had not actually left the area yet, watched the scene play out through the glass window of the door, unable to suppress a relieved smile. The first storm had passed, even though a very long journey still awaited them all ahead. The air inside the VVIP hospital room slowly began to cool, not only because the air conditioner was working at its maximum capacity, but because the suffocating tension had finally evaporated, replaced by sheer emotional exhaustion. Following the deeply emotional, tear-filled conversation between Choi Yunho and YN, the older brother finally softened his heart. With a heavy yet responsible heart, Yunho contacted Taehyung. He told the man to return to the hospital, not to receive another brutal punch, but to discuss the future. Not long after, the door to the room creaked open. Taehyung stepped inside, his shoulders visibly stiff. He wore a slightly disheveled dress shirt, but the most striking thing was his face. Miraculously, although there was a slight swelling around his jawline and cheekbone, no purplish blue or red bruises marred his handsome features. The secret was kept neatly inside Sohee's small handbag. Before entering the room, Sohee had helped Taehyung cover up the traces of Yunho's explosive rage using her own foundation. The high-coverage beauty product was able to work magic on the physical wounds, transforming them into a completely normal-looking skin surface, at least from the viewing distance of YN, who was still resting in bed. YN remained entirely unaware that beneath her lover's calm face, a sharp pain throbbed every single time Taehyung spoke. It had truly been a long and exhausting day for the four of them. However, for the sake of the tiny new life now growing inside In's womb, they all agreed to bury their egos as deeply as possible. They chose to make peace with the harsh reality for the sake of her health, which was far more precious. 2 months later, time passed rapidly, bringing noticeable changes to the contours of In's body. In accordance with the family agreement that had been negotiated with cool heads, YN and Taehyung's wedding was finally held. The doctor had given them the green light, declaring that In's pregnancy was strong and stable enough to handle the exhausting wedding procession. A luxurious hotel in the heart of Seoul served as the silent witness to the union of two hearts that had once been tossed about by a violent storm. The grand ballroom was decorated with white lilies and pastel roses, casting a beautiful fragrance into every corner of the room. Inside the bridal dressing room, the atmosphere was bustling yet filled with laughter. YN sat in front of a large mirror, looking extraordinarily elegant in a custom-designed white wedding gown tailored specifically to conceal her growing baby bump. "Oh my goodness, look at how beautiful the bride is," Sohee said as she walked into the room. Everyone in the dressing room, including the makeup artists and Daye, turned simultaneously. They were instantly stunned by Sohee's appearance. The woman wore a dark emerald satin dress that hugged her body flawlessly. Its elegant cut radiated a classy, sophisticated beauty that made it incredibly difficult for anyone to look away. "Wow, Sohee Iani, you look absolutely gorgeous," Daye exclaimed, her eyes sparkling. "Seriously, you are giving the bride a run for her money." YN joined in the enthusiasm, her bright face glowing even more at the sight of her brother's secretary. "Wow, looking like this, Yunho Oppa is definitely going to fall head over heels for you, Sohee Iani. He might even forget that his own sister is the one getting married today," YN teased playfully, prompting light laughter from the people in the room. Sohee looked down shyly, a deep crimson blush spreading across her cheeks. Her heart hammered wildly against her ribs just from hearing Yunho's name mentioned. Sohee had not seen Yunho yet this morning, as the man was currently in the groom's dressing room with Taehyung. "Stop it, please don't tease me like that," Sohee said, trying to change the subject. However, her words cut off abruptly as the door to the dressing room swung wide open. Yunho stood at the threshold. He looked extraordinarily dashing in a luxurious black suit custom-tailored by the finest artisans. His hair was styled perfectly, and his signature masculine scent instantly filled the room, captivating anyone who breathed it in. Yunho initially wore a wide smile as he gazed at YN, but his steps faltered when his eyes inadvertently locked onto Sohee. The man froze completely for several seconds. The world seemed to slow down for Yunho as he watched the woman standing there, looking so breathtakingly beautiful and radiant. Instinctively, Yunho's legs carried him closer to Sohee. "Beautiful," Yunho murmured in a low, husky voice. Completely lost in the moment, his hand reached up and gently stroked Sohee's hair with immense tenderness, a spontaneous gesture filled with pure affection. Sohee froze in place. Her breath caught in her throat, and she could feel a burning heat spreading across her entire face. The touch felt so incredibly real and warm. "See, what did I tell you? Oppa is completely spellbound by Sohee Iani." He completely ignored his own sister without giving a single compliment. YN whined, pouting her lips, though her eyes danced with delight at her brother's reaction. Yunho snapped out of his daze and cleared his throat awkwardly, realizing that he had just lost his composure in public. He stared deeply into Sohee's eyes one more time, giving her arm a brief, reassuring squeeze as if to signal "we will talk later," before quickly walking over to his sister. "You look absolutely beautiful, my little sister," Yunho said as he kissed In's forehead, his voice thick with emotion. "But Sohee Iani is prettier, right?" YN pressed again, playfully baiting her brother. "Honestly, yes," Yunho answered absent-mindedly, which instantly triggered a burst of loud laughter from Daye. "Ah, Oppa, you are so annoying." YN pretended to sulk, while Sohee could only lower her head even further, desperately trying to hide her happy smile. Yunho scratched the back of his neck sheepishly, then took In's hand gently in his. Alright, let's head out. The ceremony is about to begin. Don't frown like that, or your future husband will scold me if his bride looks upset. I don't care if Taehyung oppa scolds you. YN snapped back playfully, though she finally let out a wide smile and accepted her brother's hand. They began walking toward the ballroom. Daye and Sohee immediately took their places among the wedding guests, while Yunho stood at the entrance, preparing to escort his only younger sister into her brand new life. The classical music began to swell, filling the grand room. The doors swung open, and Yunho began to step forward slowly, escorting YN down the aisle. YN gripped Yunho's arm tightly, her body trembling slightly from nerves. She glanced up at her brother and noticed that his eyes were already glistening with tears. Don't cry, Oppa, or you'll make me cry too, YN whispered softly. I'm not crying, sweetheart. It's just dust, Yunho lied, continuing to gently pat In's hand looped through his arm. At the far end of the altar, Taehyung stood tall and dashing. His usually cold demeanor was now replaced by a mixture of deep emotion and tension. As they finally reached the front of the altar, Yunho released In's hand and placed it into Taehyung's. Before stepping back completely, Yunho leaned in close to Taehyung's ear, whispering in a very low, threatening tone. Your face will be black and blue all over again if you dare hurt YN even the slightest bit. Taehyung offered a faint smile, looking at Yunho with absolute confidence. You don't need to worry, Yunho ah. I'll make sure you never regret giving YN to me. Yunho patted Taehyung's shoulder, a rare and costly symbol of surrender and trust. He then embraced YN one last time before stepping down from the altar to take his seat next to Sohee. Sohee welcomed Yunho with the warmest smile she could muster. She could see just how deeply affected Yunho was by having to let his sister go under these circumstances. Sohee stroked Yunho's arm, offering her unspoken support. Yunho responded by tightly gripping Sohee's hand beneath the table, as if searching for strength there. YN will definitely be happy with Taehyung, Yunho ah. You don't have anything to worry about anymore, Sohee said softly. Juna, Yunho's secretary who was sitting at the very same table, could only shake his head at the sight. As someone who worked closest with Yunho at the office, Juna knew perfectly well that his boss and Sohee loved each other, but they were either too cowardly or too comfortable in the friend zone to admit their true feelings. The sacred vows were then exchanged. The atmosphere turned incredibly solemn as Taehyung slipped the wedding band onto In's ring finger. Grief, joy, and profound emotion intertwined, creating a poignant atmosphere that moved the hearts of everyone in attendance. Once the blessing ceremony concluded, the ambiance shifted into a more relaxed setting. The guests began to savor the cuisine and mingle, stepping forward to offer their heartfelt congratulations. Up on the wedding stage, Taehyung carefully guided YN to sit on the plush bridal chairs. Why are we sitting down, Oppa? There are still so many guests waiting to congratulate us, YN grumbled playfully. You are pregnant, sweetheart. I don't want you overexerting yourself. Let them come up here to us if they want to take a photo, Taehyung said as he knelt briefly to massage In's feet, which were swollen from the high heels. YN smiled sweetly, her heart brimming with gratitude. If I get tired, I'll definitely let you know. Taehyung stood up and planted a loving kiss on In's cheek. Alright, my most beautiful wife. Do you want to eat? What do you want to eat, Just don't say you want to eat me, that's reserved for Tony 9HT in 0er room, Taehyung whispered in a teasing tone. Gosh, Taehyung oppa, someone might hear you. YN whined, her face flushing crimson as she gave her husband's arm a gentle pinch. Taehyung chuckled with amusement. Alright, I'm sorry. Come on, let me get you some food. I'll feed you. Taehyung then led YN to a small round table close to the buffet area so she wouldn't have to walk too far. With utmost care, the man who was once known for his cold exterior selected healthy options that were safe for expectant mothers, and then patiently fed his wife. The guests who caught sight of the scene couldn't help but smile at how adorable they were. Their romance appeared completely pure and effortless. From a distance, Yunho watched his sister. He saw how Taehyung treated YN like a piece of priceless porcelain. A genuine smile finally carved its way onto Yunho's lips. Always be happy, my little sister, he thought faintly. A tiny shred of his disappointment might still linger, but seeing the pure joy in In's eyes, Yunho knew he had made the right choice by giving them his blessing. The grand reception finally drew to a close as the clock struck 10 p.m. The lingering scent of rose petals and expensive perfume still hung in the air of the now quiet ballroom. Following a deeply emotional round of goodbyes, the extended family escorted Taehyung and YN to Taehyung's private mansion, a sleek, modern minimalist estate that would now stand witness to their new life together. Once they ensured the newlyweds were safely settled, the relatives headed back to their respective homes one by one, leaving a comfortable silence inside Taehyung's residence. Inside the spacious master bedroom, Taehyung revealed a side of himself that no one else ever saw. The man who was typically strict and cold in the business world had now transformed into someone incredibly attentive. With endless patience, he helped YN out of her heavy wedding gown. His fingers gently pulled down the zipper along In's back, as if terrified of scratching his wife's skin. He didn't stop there. Taehyung guided YN to the vanity. Using a cotton pad and cleansing water, he meticulously wiped away the layers of makeup from In's face. YN could only stare at her husband's reflection in the mirror, her eyes welling up with tears of profound emotion. After a warm bath ritual that helped relax their tense muscles, 2 hours quickly slipped by. They were now lying together on the plush, king-sized bed. How is Daddy's little angel? Doing all right, Taehyung asked softly, his voice deep and thick with affection. Taehyung repeatedly stroked his wife's stomach in a gentle, circular motion, as though he were directly caressing the fetus. I'm doing great, Daddy. Baby is strong, YN chimed in using a playful, high-pitched voice, mimicking a toddler. Taehyung let out a soft laugh, his baritone voice vibrating at a low register. He felt as though his happiness was now absolute. He showered In's forehead, cheeks, and lips with countless kisses, pouring out his overflowing love. Honestly, I really want to visit the baby tonight, but I know Mommy must be absolutely exhausted today, Taehyung whispered with a smoldering look that sent shivers down In's spine. YN looked back at her husband, a bold spark in her eyes. You can, Daddy, if you want to, she answered softly, offering herself up even though her body did feel utterly shattered. Taehyung smiled, but he shook his head resolutely. He pulled the comforter up to their chests. No, sweetheart, you need total rest tonight. We have a lifetime ahead of us and plenty of time for that. I don't want to be selfish. YN could only nod shyly. She buried her burning face against Taehyung's broad chest, inhaling the scent of his soap and masculinity. It didn't take long for YN to drift off to sleep, completely overtaken by her immense fatigue. My wife is just too adorable, Taehyung murmured, stroking In's hair. Thank you, sweetheart. I promise I'll be a good husband and father to you both. I love you, honey. Taehyung kissed his sleeping wife's lips one last time before finally closing his eyes, joining YN in dreamland with a lingering smile still on his face.